in a solid rocky mountain in Italy, there's a favorite place for people who love to do rock climbing. One of the climbers is a girl named Kelly, who wants to do healing by climbing the rock with her best friend, Sophie, and they're already staying in a cabin near a rocky mountain. On the first day they stay, they hear the sound of a car coming, and it turns out that it is some guys who also want to do healing by climbing the rock, and they feel happy with the fresh air in this area rather than in their big city. The girls also feel happy seeing the guys' excitement, until one moment when the first eye contact happens between Sophie and one of the guys named Josh. To make things more fun, Josh invites the girls to have fun by partying that night, which sounds interesting to them, but they will discuss it first. While Josh's friends talk about the mountain they will climb, they realize that Josh goes to flirt with the girls, and it reminds them that Josh already has a fiancée, but he still dares to flirt with other girls. While they keep gossiping about Josh, he comes from behind to express his anger because he is the only one trying to flirt with the girls, while the others just relax. Then he grabs one of his friends until that friend says something that makes Josh offended, and he attacks his friend, but the friend manages to break free, and finally, Josh mocks him. Meanwhile, the girls talk about Josh's invitation, where Sophie feels interested in joining the guys' party, while Kelly wants to stick to their schedule to climb the rock early in the morning. But after Sophie asks to join for a little while, Kelly agrees to come, and finally, they tickle each other. At night, when the girls and guys have fun, Sophie tells them that she and Kelly will climb the mountain by the most challenging route, while the guys will take the safe route behind the mountain. After a while, one of Josh's friends, named Reynolds, notices Kelly, who just stays quiet, so Reynolds asks if there's a story she wants to share. Kelly says that her story is not interesting, but the guys don't know that Kelly actually has a dark past with her ex, who died in an incident and only left his ring, which Kelly still keeps to this day. When she feels it is time to rest, Kelly says goodbye to sleep, while Sophie still wants to hang out. But suddenly, Josh holds Kelly's hand to make her stay, so Kelly asks him to let go of her hand, and after a few moments, Josh finally releases her hand. After some time, Sophie still hangs out with the guys and already drinks a lot, so Reynolds asks Josh not to give Sophie more drinks, but Josh refuses. He then tells Sophie to take the back route with his friends, but she refuses and says that the route the guys will take is the coward's route. As a result, Josh's friends laugh, but not Josh, who feels offended, even though Sophie says the word coward in a joking tone. Therefore, when he goes to relieve himself, Josh walks towards Sophie and wants to do something bad to her. Of course, Sophie doesn't accept this, so she scratches Josh's cheek, and the situation becomes worse until Josh tries to commit sexual assault on Kelly. Sophie's screams are heard by the other guys, so they stop Josh's action, and Sophie runs away. Thinking that it is just a misunderstanding, the guys decide to find Sophie and talk nicely to her. But because she feels scared, she keeps running away from them, while they are forced to run to stop Sophie. When she gets trapped at the edge of the cliff, one of Josh's friends, Zek, comes from behind to cover Sophie's mouth and says that they just want to talk. But Sophie doesn't believe it, so she bites Zek's finger, making Josh even angrier, and he punches Sophie's face until she slips off the cliff's edge and falls hard to the ground. This makes Sophie's condition critical, with her leg bones broken, so she asks for help from the guys, and Reynolds immediately calls an ambulance. But Josh stops him because he doesn't want the police to know about this incident, since his face has Sophie scratch marks and Zek's finger has a bite wound. Therefore, they might go to jail if the police find out the truth. However, Reynolds thinks that it is just an accident, so he asks for the others' opinion, and they agree with Josh. One of Josh's friends, who wants to get a law degree, named Taylor, is asked for his legal knowledge, so he tells them that their possible defense is an unintentional murder claim. But because there are scratch marks on Josh's face and a bite on Zek's finger, the chance of getting caught is higher, and they could be sentenced to 20 years in prison for attempted murder. Then Josh decides to make the incident look like an accident, so he wants them to leave Sophie, but not alive. Therefore, Josh wants to end Sophie's life with a rock, which Reynolds tries to stop, but Josh threatens him with a knife while asking if he wants to stay with them or also die. As a result, Reynolds has no choice but to follow Josh's order. Then he picks up the rock again, and finally, Sophie's head is crushed to death. Before Josh and his friends continue their next action, Taylor remembers that Sophie's nails still have Josh's skin from the scratch, so they clean her nails first. After they are ready, Sophie's body is thrown away, but not long after that, they hear a scream from afar. It is Kelly, holding her handycam to record. It happens because Kelly hears Sophie screams when she faces Josh and the others. making Kelly suspicious that something bad has happened after realizing Sophie and the guys are gone from a hangout spot. So Kelly goes to look for them in the nearby forest while bringing her handycam. And when she sees Josh and the others doing terrible things to Sophie's body, she turns on the handycam and screams as they throw Sophie's body away. Therefore, Kelly immediately runs away from Josh and the others, and after some time, she meets Reynolds while escaping. But because he only joins Josh's plan under pressure, he intentionally lets Kelly go, and finally, he runs away toward the cabin, where he takes his equipment bag to escape to the Rocky Mountains. Josh and the others find this out, so they keep chasing Kelly, who starts climbing the mountain, until one of Josh's friends, Taylor, has no choice but to climb to catch Kelly. Taylor almost catches Kelly, but she steps on his hand, making him almost fall. However, he doesn't give up and keeps climbing the cliff until he manages to grab Kelly's bag, causing some of her climbing equipment to fall along with Taylor, who almost falls from the height. But he still doesn't give up, and right when he reaches Kelly's leg, she immediately steps on Taylor, and finally, he falls from the height. As a result, he also breaks his leg, the same as what happens to Sophie. So Josh and the others delay the chase to bring Taylor back to their cabin first, where they treat his injured leg. After they leave Taylor to continue chasing Kelly, Josh and the others bring their climbing equipment bags to the Rocky Mountain, where they see Kelly, who climbs skillfully and already gets too high to come back down without a rope. Not long after that, they find Kelly's phone, which also falls but still works, so they decide to keep it. Josh then remembers that he forgot his gloves at the cabin, so he goes there alone and tells his two friends to wait. This becomes a chance for Reynolds to persuade Zek to tell the truth to the police that Josh is the one who ends Sophie's life. But Zek disagrees because he feels afraid of the 20-year prison threat that Taylor told them about before. Because Josh takes too long to come back, Zek goes to meet Josh at the cabin, but before Zek can enter, Josh comes out in anger when he sees Zek coming there. Meanwhile, Kelly keeps climbing until she stops when she meets a snake, so she tries not to distract the snake by staying still, and finally, the snake moves away. She then continues climbing and climbing until her palms get injured, so she decides to rest for a while drinking from her bottle. But when she puts her bottle beside her for a moment, she accidentally drops it while adjusting her bag, and finally, she no longer has a water supply. At that time, Josh and the others were already below Kelly and saw the bottle that fell. So Josh mocked Kelly with a thirsty gesture, then continued teasing her by sending a DM from Kelly's own Instagram account to Josh's account, saying that he was handsome. And finally, Kelly said,
"F you! Thanks, Kelly!"
After some time, when Kelly continues climbing, she sees a rope a bit far from her reach that she wants to grab. So she stops for a moment to tear one of her bags and take out a wire from it. With that wire, she can use it as a hook to catch the rope, and finally, she gets it. This makes her remember her past moments with her ex when they first met, and it turns out that he once taught Kelly how to rock climb. So she uses that memory as motivation, and finally, she manages to reach a rock hold that is a bit far from her position. Kelly then sees a hanging tent left by someone above, but she passes it by and keeps climbing to another resting spot above. However, it turns out Josh and the others had already arrived there first, so Kelly has no choice but to defend herself by using the old hanging tent. After Josh and the others realize there is a cliff edge blocking their view of Kelly, Josh says that he only wants Kelly's camera because it could be evidence that will be reported to the police. So if Kelly agrees to give the camera, Josh and the others will leave her. By throwing a rope toward Kelly, she takes that rope with the wire, but instead of giving the camera, she gives a strong message to Josh, and finally, he decides that he will end Kelly's life. Josh and the others think that Kelly is already trapped, unable to climb higher or go back down, especially since she has limited equipment. So they decide to wait. While talking privately with Zek, Reynolds thinks that even if they get the camera, Kelly can still be a living witness. So Josh will not let Kelly get down the mountain alive. If he dares to go up there, Josh will kill her. And that makes Reynolds realize that Josh has become a psychopath, which the other friends have already noticed long ago. After treating her injured palms, Kelly sets a hooking tool between the rock gaps above so she can use the leftover hanging tent. Inside the tent, she finds a bottle with only a little water, a small snack, and a sharp piece of metal. Night finally comes, and Kelly has already set up the hanging tent and eats the small snack, while Josh and the others can eat better food. During their meal, they find out from Kelly's phone that her ex actually died because he fell during rock climbing. And that happened 1 year ago, so they assume Kelly is healing through rock climbing to remember her late lover. After Josh releases his fluid toward Kelly's tent, Josh and Zek install hooks to a nearby rock wall, and it turns out that they use it to swing a weight toward Kelly's tent, making her disturbed and almost fall because of it. Therefore, she avoids a swinging weight by grabbing it. And when Josh notices that, he decides to cut the rope to make Kelly fall, but she still manages to hold onto a rock foothold below, and finally, the weight drops from the height. After some time, when Kelly falls asleep again, suddenly another problem comes with strange sounds outside the tent, which turns out to be Zek, who wants to take her camera while bringing a knife. Therefore, Kelly tells him where the camera is, but she takes advantage of Zek's carelessness by stabbing him with the sharp metal and tries to make Zek fall. When Josh hears and asks what happens, Kelly thinks that both she and Zek will be killed by Josh if Zek tells him what really happens, so Kelly asks Zek to work together. But he refuses and tells his two friends to pull the rope. So Kelly has no choice but to move along with Zek to avoid falling from the height until they arrive at Josh and the other spot, where Josh immediately pulls Kelly's body. This makes her ex's ring necklace get taken by Josh, so Kelly quickly cuts her own hair that Josh holds, causing her to fall and hang at the edge of the tent. Then she quickly climbs back to a rock foothold, and right after she feels safe, the tent's hook gets loose, and finally, the hanging tent falls from the height. After some time, Zek remembers that at first, Josh only wanted healing through rock climbing, but it turned into chaos, so Reynolds tries to convince Josh to stop by telling a fake story to the police later. Therefore, Josh asks Zek whether he agrees, to which Zek answers that he agrees. So Josh finally wants to stop all this and plans to go down the next morning and call his fiancée for help. However, this becomes a loss for Zek because he could die from the bleeding wound that Kelly stabbed him with before, so Zek asks Reynolds to take him down from the mountain. Zek also adds that he realizes something suspicious when Josh returns to the cabin to get his gloves. Actually, he wants to end Taylor's life. Besides, Josh and his fiancée have not spoken for 6 months because Josh got caught cheating when his fiancée saw him going with another girl to a rented room. If that is true, Zek strongly suspects that Taylor's phone is now in Josh's bag, which means no help will come when Taylor realizes his phone is gone. So Zek tells Reynolds to get Josh's watch, because the watch has an emergency transmitter and Reynolds has to send a signal with it. Reynolds then starts to take Josh's watch, but right before he can take it, Josh immediately catches his hand, and finally, he gets tortured. Zek quickly asks Josh to stop what he is doing, and he lets out his anger, saying that both of his friends have been gossiping about him, and they prefer Kelly over Josh. Then he says that Kelly is just a slut like the others, because for Josh, there is no woman in this world who is truly faithful. After some time, when both of his friends fall asleep, Zek goes to relieve himself near the edge of the cliff. But he doesn't realize that Josh is behind him, who wants to hit Zek's head with a hammer until it breaks, and finally, he dies by falling from a height. Reynolds then wakes up and realizes that Zek is already gone. So Josh lies, saying that Zek went down first to get help. Reynolds then volunteers to be the one who will end Kelly's life and borrows Josh's hammer, which is already clean from Zek's blood. But Josh doesn't realize that Reynolds does it, so he can help Kelly by giving her a can of food. Reynolds then asks Kelly to cooperate by lying to Josh and telling him that his friend Zek has gone down to find help. But Kelly tells him that Zek is actually already dead because of Josh, and that Josh will also kill Reynolds later because he always disagrees with him. Even so, Reynolds thinks that Josh will come there too to take the camera himself, which will endanger Kelly in the end. As a result, she agrees to give the camera to Reynolds, and then she screams as loud as she can to trick Josh before Reynolds comes and asks Josh to pull her body up. When he checks the camera, the memory card is gone, which turns out that Kelly has already taken it on purpose. Reynolds then calls Taylor to know his condition, but the phone rings in Josh's pocket as a sign that he really has killed Taylor at the cabin. This makes Reynolds and Josh fight, but Josh manages to take the hammer from Reynolds, and finally, he beats him over and over until he gets weak. After that, Josh ties Reynolds' body, then burns him together with his body thrown toward Kelly, so the fire sparks at the rope, and finally, he dies by falling from the height. When Josh wears the ring necklace of Kelly's late lover, Kelly remembers when she and her ex did rock climbing together, and he actually wanted to propose to Kelly with the ring he had prepared. But suddenly, his foot slips from the rock, and finally, he dies at that moment. That is why Kelly keeps remembering her late lover whenever she climbs a rock. Thinking that Josh will come in a few minutes, Kelly thinks hard about how to fight Josh with a plan, until she gets the idea to take Zek's knife, which was dropped and stuck into a rock when Kelly takes it from his pants. Then, she sees another snake beside her, so she uses it as part of the plan she will do. A few moments later, Josh finally meets Kelly directly, and she still refuses to give him the memory card, so they start to fight. But Kelly tells him that she has hidden the memory card somewhere in the wall, and she believes that one day, someone will find it. So Josh keeps insisting on getting the memory card, until Kelly gives up and agrees to tell him the location of the memory card, which is in a hole on Josh's left side. Then he goes to the hole, but he doesn't realize that there is a snake that Kelly has placed there, and finally, Josh gets bitten. This makes his left hand weaken, giving Kelly a chance to fight him more, until she makes him almost fall after she cuts his rope. As a result, Josh now begs for help like Sophie did before, but Kelly refuses his plea by taking back her late lover's ring necklace. And because she once heard Josh talking about his watch that has an emergency transmitter, Kelly also activates that transmitter. It becomes the moment for Kelly to take revenge by stepping on Josh's hand until he can't hold on anymore. And finally, he dies by falling from the height. After some time, when the morning comes, Kelly climbs the remaining part of the cliff until finally, she also reaches the top of a rocky mountain. The movie The Ledge ends with Kelly looking at the magnificent Rocky Mountain scenery. And finally, she hears the sound of a helicopter coming to the location to rescue her. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification so you don't miss the latest recaps.